Hello everybody and welcome back to Ours Trains. My name is Corey and in today's video we'll be taking a look at part 2 of my HO scale locomotive collection, or train collection as I probably titled today's video. But yeah, if you haven't seen part 1, I kind of explained how the whole thing works, but here in part 2 we'll be looking at more locomotives from the HO scale Littleville D&H fleet, of course. In today's collection we'll be looking at my 5 locomotives I got from the collection of Jim Lafayette. So it's not like these came from different places and all that, like, oh, one's from eBay or another I got from a friend and all. These all came from the wonderful D&H layout of Jim Lafayette, a former Delaware and Hudson Railroad employee. And this kind of explains the close connection to all of these, because being a railroader himself, Jim absolutely loved these pieces and kind of could reflect his time being a Delaware and Hudson employee onto his pieces there and make them accurate the way he saw them, whether that be weathering, adding some additional parts and decals to them, or touching them up and all that stuff. So yeah, these locomotives I got 2 years ago in 2021, and they're a really special part of the collection, but they're also really cool knowing their legacy, and that their legacy of course will live on both on the layout and through digitally on YouTube as well. So yeah, if you like today's video, make sure to give it a big old thumbs up down below, and if you have any comments you'd like to make, whether that be your favorite locomotive or if you have pieces like these or whatever, make sure to comment that down below. But yeah, otherwise, besides that, I think we're about ready to get into today's video, so let's roll. Alright, the first locomotive we have from the collection of Jim Lafayette is this wonderful Atlas Classic Delaware and Hudson Alco RS11 number 5001. As you can see, this is a little bit of an older Atlas model. You can or for those who really know their model trains well in HO scale, you can kind of see how this is a little bit of an older Atlas model RS11 just through some of the details and all that. But this is a very nice locomotive, and it's probably one of the oldest that we'll be looking at today here. I don't quite know when this locomotive came out, but assuming it's an Atlas Classic, I'm gonna assume that this is probably a mid-2000s, maybe early 2010s at its youngest, so to say. But this model here, I am assuming, I don't know that much about it or anything, just the fact that it came from Jim's collection, of course, but that I'm assuming this was probably a DCC ready model when it was bought and it got upgraded to DCC. Of course, with the regular DCC decoder, because in looking at the box, nowhere on the box does it say that this locomotive has, or a DCC coder equipped. That definitely would have been a thing Atlas would have used to market the locomotive back then, or make it like a really high-end model to show that, oh, look, this has got a new thing called DCC, although I don't know the age of DCC, but I digress. This model here would have been painted, of course, regularly, like every other train where it's not weathered, but Jim went in and weathered this model here, probably as he saw it back when he worked on the Delaware and Hudson, which pretty much was this unit never being cleaned. By the time he saw it, it was probably dirty just like this. But yeah, this is a classic RS11, and if you're familiar with the Delaware and Hudson, you at some point have probably seen this color scheme here in the mid-70s, late 70s and all that. But yeah, this model's got pretty good detail actually for being an older Atlas model. I'm really impressed. I mean, the handrails, the grab irons, the decals, all the little different vents and all that stuff look really, really good. And especially you can kind of see just barely some of the rivets and stuff like that, or bolts or whatever. All that lovely locomotive detailing. It looks really nice, and especially the trucks too. Atlas did not cheap out on the trucks. They went in and really detailed those nicely. I'll try to get the camera to focus on it here, but that looks really, really good. And then you can kind of see underneath here, nothing too special to look at, of course. But yeah, this locomotive is a little bit more lightweight, of course. The trucks are all plastic. The only thing really metal on it is the wheels. Everything here is plastic, of course, but it's got a good little bit of weight to it. And again, it's just a DCC silent locomotive, and it's kind of got the old yellow headlights rather than a warm white looking headlight. But still, it's a very nice model, and it looks so good on Littleville because, of course, Littleville is modeled to look very realistic, and having a locomotive weathered like this that looks very realistic, definitely helps. Oh, I realized the camera was out of focus there. I hope it wasn't like that for too long. But yeah, this locomotive here is an older Atlas model, and what I've noticed with these really older Atlas classic locomotives that are DCC, or kind of have the DCC decoder in it only, and that's about it, in an older DCC system too, is that when you start them, they'll go around slow, but if you leave it at the same speed and let it go around your layout like 10, 12 times, it'll slowly warm up, so to say, and speed up too, to where you'll have to then scale it back down in speed. So they're great models, so I really like them. They're classic, they work very well. They kind of have a little bit of a hum to them, so to say. More modern DCC locomotives can be really, really quiet, but ones like this, at least this locomotive here, has a little bit of a hum when it's going around the layout. But anyways, though, it's a very nice model, and again, it looks super nice pulling a long freight train. So we'll go show you what it looks like on the layout. Alright, the next locomotive we'll be looking at is another Atlas classic. This one is D&H number 4110, of course, an Alco RS3. And again, just like, well, pretty much all the units we'll be looking at here, besides the U-boat when we get to it, that Jim touched these models up in some way, shape, or form. And as you can see on this one here, the marker lights might be the most noticeable one, and I love those so much. But of course, Jim added DCC. I'm assuming again that he added DCC to it, and that the model was originally DC, because again, nowhere on the box does it say anything about DCC on board or anything, or it was probably a DCC ready decoder. But anyways, though, he added, I'm assuming, DCC, and then of course he obviously weathered this unit very lightly, though it's not a heavy weather. But this thing looks killer cool. It's got really good, and again, I don't know if these little details, particularly around the cab, maybe if he added or not, but assuming, I have seen Atlas RS3s before, and they're usually very well detailed. So, assuming that a lot of these kind of little things, like, you know, this little, I guess, airline here, that the horn is original to the model, and same for the little front handrails and all, assuming that's all original to the model and not touch-ups, either way, this thing looks super, super good. It's a really good model, and the colors are just right on it. I mean, it's not like the blue is too dark or too light, or the yellow is too off, or the gray just doesn't feel right. Everything on this model looks super, super pretty. And like I was saying before, again, this is a DCC silent locomotive, so there is no sound decoder, but it's pretty lightweight, actually, compared to the RS11. It's not as heavy, but just like the RS11, it kind of needs to warm up a few times around the layout before you get to its proper speed, so to say. But it's a really good-looking unit. I mean, Atlas nailed it with this one. This is how an RS3 should look. And what I wanted to show you guys real quick, and I'll have to zoom out of this one, but is I have two 4110s. This one here is the HO scale version. And if I zoom out, oh no, you can see my editing corners, but if you see the HO version there, and then you've got the Atlas O-scale version in the background, so you can kind of see the difference between the two models here if I take this one off there. So both of these are Atlas, and they were probably made about the same time. You can see how the HO scale one has the wider or taller cab with the bigger windows, versus the O-scale one is a little more squinty. But the O-scale one got the dual headlights, which I absolutely love, while the HO one did not. But it's kind of fun to look at both of these units here and see the differences between the two and all, or especially what one is the more accurate Delaware and Hudson locomotive. But either way, both are very nice, but Jim's is a really nice one. And again, we'll show you this one running around the layout, but it works very, very well, and it looks super pretty. Alright, next one from Jim's collection here is another Atlas Classic Delaware and Hudson RS3. Again, just like the ones prior, this is a DCC silent decoder, and I'm assuming that Jim put a DCC decoder in it because it was most likely DC before, but this model here isn't very touched up by him. It has a few light weathering marks on the top, and of course it's got the marker lights on the front end of the locomotive here, but otherwise that it looks pretty much original as to other D&H RS3s I've seen like this. But this is number 4067, and this was what most D&H diesels looked like from when Alco delivered them brand new until the early 60s. Most D&H locomotives prior to then were just painted black, and some would have the tiger stripes on the front, and others would be just completely black, I believe. So, yeah, this is a very cool looking locomotive, and it's nice to have an older D&H one that's not in the lightning stripe. There isn't that much I can say about this one besides, oh, the pack, it looks great and runs just like the other RS3 as well. So we'll show you guys running around this one here. And just like the other ones before, again, this is an all-plastic locomotive. It's got a little bit more weight. This one, I think, has a little bit, has a die-cast fuel tank, or at least frame compared to the other one. But of course, plastic trucks, metal wheels, plastic couplers, plastic handrails, plastic-a-dee-da-da-da. Alright, the next locomotive we have from Jim's collection here is my most unusual one. This is a lifelike Proto 2000 EMD BL2, particularly number 56 from the Bangor and Aroostook Railroad. So this one here this one's got a neat bit of history actually. Number 56. For those who have been around on YouTube long enough, you might remember the excited train guy in the video where I don't know if I can show it or not for copyright reasons and all, if there even is such thing, but I can sum it up here at least when he's going crazy over the train horns, and at some point he says, a BL2 too. I believe this is the same exact one. Numbers 52 and number 56, this one here, both ended up at the Saratoga and North Creek Railway, and I don't know if number 56 or 52 was in the video, but one of the BL2s was, so this one would eventually become a Saratoga and North Creek BL2, but as you can see, this is what it looks like in the B&A, as I'll call it, livery here, and it looks very nice. I like the dark blue with the yellow decals and the silver trucks, and it looks almost very D&H-y, almost to say what some D&H locomotives, particularly number 5000, do have. But anyways, though, I digress. This thing's got really good detail, actually. The trucks look amazing. The sides look really good. For being a streamlined locomotive, you're not going to have much detail on it anyways, compared to like a different EMD or what have you. But either way, though, it's got really nice detail, and I love the split headlights and the little markers, of course. This locomotive, I can almost guarantee, came from factory as DC, and Jim must have put a DCC decoder in it because it works fine on the DCC layout, but just like the other twos, this one really has to, or the other three actually, this one really has to warm up before it gets going. It can move really slow, and you'll have it set at the same speed, and then it starts to slowly get faster and faster and faster the more it's around. But yeah, this locomotive, like a Proto 2000 locomotive, has a very soft shell, so to say, where you can almost kind of squeeze it a little, but it's got a much more heavy underneath. It's got, again, I believe, a little die-cast metal fuel tank underneath here, and the trucks are plastic, wheels are metal, of course, but yeah, it's a good loco. It doesn't get much runtime because it's the most oddball locomotive I have. I don't have any Bangor and Aroostook. It's mostly all Delaware and Hudson, with the exception for a few different roads or what have you that run around the railroad, which I guess would be this one here. But yeah, I'll show you a little bit of this one running around the layout. Alright, and the last locomotive we'll be looking at here from the collection of Jim Lafayette is this very nice Atlas Master Line, Delaware and Hudson, General Electric U23B, number 2313. This locomotive here is a much newer release. It came from the factory with DCC sound, and as you can see, Atlas has much better details and all that stuff on this. But slowly going around, this is a very classic this is almost like when people think of D&H, they're going to think of something like this. If it's not an Alco, they'll think of at least one of the D&H U-boats. I don't know how many U-boats the D&H had, and I'll be referring to this as the U-boat for the rest of the video now for simplicity's sake. But I don't know how many they actually had, but this is a very nice model of one. I don't believe it's 100% accurate. I believe that the one noticeable thing I think that is off is at least the Mars light. I think this is a functional Mars light, which is awesome, but I think the D&H removed the Mars lights on these smaller 4-axle U-boats. They had them on the U-30Cs, I believe, but I believe for these smaller units here, they didn't have them, but they had the little box still there, where you can kind of see like a little patchwork thing or whatever. But anyways, though, this is a really nicely detailed model, and the sound decoder on this thing is amazing. If I didn't say earlier, which I probably just said like 3 seconds ago, again, this is factory DCC sound. This is ESU Loc sound on it. I don't know what version it is, but it's probably one of the most recent ones, because this is not a very old model, but this is a very great sounding, great looking, and great functioning model too. I mean, it just starts right off the bat. It can move slow, can move fast. I haven't had any problems with it. And it's always a fun one to have a move around the layout. But, of course, it doesn't look right being so clean, so I plan to get it weathered at some point. But, yeah, this locomotive here doesn't seem like it was ever really touched by Jim. There's no signs of weathering or any additional modifications, at least that I can tell from this locomotive. But it's a very, very pretty one, and again, super happy to have it. And just looking at the underneath here, there's no speaker on the bottom, but it's definitely DCC Sound Factory. But yeah, you've got your metal wheels. It almost feels like maybe a little metal die-cast frame, but I think that's actually plastic sides, and then everything else is, of course, plastic with the nice details. So yeah, we'll show this thing running around the layout, and it's got a lot of sound features, but I won't be showing them all. And I don't know how many I can actually access from my NCE decoder without needing a ESU Loc sound program or whatever. But yeah, that'll wrap up today's video. And that marks the end of today's video right here. I hope you all enjoyed. Again, it's a lot of fun doing these little collection videos. It's just nice to showcase the different locomotives I have, and whether that be the different stories they have or just the different locomotives in general or whatever that may be. It's always just fun to see a model railroaders collection, so to say. But yeah, again, hope you all enjoyed today's video. Be on the lookout for part 3 coming sometime soon. Again, I got about another 5 more locomotives to film from the Littleville fleet, and that pretty much covers every HO train I have. So yeah, I hope you all enjoyed today's video. Thank you very much for watching, and I'll see you all in the next video / live stream / whatever that might be. So stay tuned. Bye-bye.